finally, the long-awaited nurse guide from me that has been requested for quite a long time. I've been trying to record it for quite a long time. It's finally here. So today, I'm meant to be going through 9 different little things which I want to talk about with Nurse. A lot of people asked me to make a guide on Nurse because I have thousands of hours in her on the game, hours on PC, almost 1,000 now, and about 4,500 hours on PlayStation 4. So I've played Nurse on controller, I've played Nurse on shitty frames, I've played Nurse on mouse and keyboard, I've played Nurse on good frames, I've played against PC survivors, I've played against console survivors. So I feel like I know quite a lot about Nurse, and a lot of people have asked me to make a Nurse guide about her, because I don't believe there are very many people talking about how to play Nurse, that kind of thing, on YouTube. So, yeah, because people have asked me to do it, I decided I will actually do it. And I have my script here. And the 9 things I want to go through are muscle memory, traveling the map, general Nurse play, playing against less skilled survivors, positioning, shack, playing against smarter survivors, add-ons, and perk builds. So it should be, right now, there should be a flash on the screen of each 9 of these things, along with a timestamp. It will probably also be the pinned comment, so if there's anything in particular you think I've already got this down, I know this, I don't need any advice on it, you'll be able to skip through to the timestamp that is relevant to you. As well, for this video, we will just be having some generic, Nurse play in the background whilst I'm talking about my advice for these kinds of things, and then when I need some sort of visual assistance, that will come up on screen as well as I'm talking about it. So, if you have made it to this point, and you do want to see some more Nurse gameplay, some more educational Nurse gameplay, that kind of thing, if you could think about subscribing, I'd really appreciate it. All you have to do is scroll down and check, because you might think that you're subscribed, but you're not already. There is a bug going around on YouTube at the moment, which actually unsubscribes people from channels, so if you could just scroll down and check, you don't have to subscribe if you don't want to, that's completely up to you, but it helps me out a lot more than you actually realize. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to address with the Nurse guide was muscle memory, which is a very important thing, which a lot of people don't actually realize is a big part of Nurse. It's the first thing that you need to do before you learn anything about the mind games or anything. You need to know where you're going to land when you're charging up a blink, and how long to charge up a blink for the distance that you're going to travel, realistically. That's what you need to know. There are add-ons to work around this, and I say this all the time on stream when people ask me. I said that I think you should use the plaid flannel until you roughly know where you're about to land, but the simply thing is, there is no get-rich-quick scheme in the sense of learning muscle memory. There is no, okay, I can teach you muscle memory, I can go into KYF and tell you what to do. It is something that you need to learn in your mind, in your head, so that you're going, okay, I'm going this distance when I hold down my trigger, when I hold down my M2 for this long, or whatever button you use to trigger the Nurse blink. So it's something that you've got to have in your body, in your mind, in your brain, in your muscle memory, so that you know the distance that you're traveling. And the only way to do that is literally practice and time. So you could either go into KYF and do this with a friend if you have people that are willing to help you with that. If you didn't want to do it in public games, if you have a rank 1 killer account but you can't really play Nurse. Or what I did when I actually first learned Nurse is I made a rank 20 account. And I just sort of messed around, because this was when I was learning muscle memory, and it doesn't really matter what rank you do it against, whether you do it against rank 20s, rank 1s, you're just learning muscle memory. You could literally go into a KYF with no one there and just be like, okay, I'm going to try and land next to that tree, and then blink near the tree, and see, how far off you, and you go, okay, I need to hold it down for a little bit longer, hold it down for a little bit. There isn't really any way to learn muscle memory quickly. It's just something that you need to go into public games, and you need to go, okay, I want to land on this survivor's back, I want to land a little bit off from the survivor, and just making sure that you're landing where you think you're going to land for how long you've charged a blink. That is the most important foundation for Nurse, and that's the thing that you need to get down first out of everything else. Okay, number 2, a relatively quick one. What I do when I'm traveling the map, with Nurse, a lot of older people will have seen, if you look at old gameplays of Nurse before she had the blink tokens for the recharge, is everybody will just burn 2 blinks to travel the map, because you have no penalty for burning those 2 blinks. And if you are running the old Nurse add-ons with the double recharge, I do recommend, yeah, you can still do this. It doesn't really matter, it's not going to affect you too much, because you get your blinks back so quickly. You pretty much get them back after your fatigue anyway. But What I would recommend when you're traveling the map is, in most cases, you're only going to be really using one blink. If you're running whispers, then you're using one blink until your whispers lights up, and then you can look for the survivor and then use your 2 blinks. Pretty much, the general rule is for most nurses is that the first blink is for travel, and the second blink is for your hit. What I like to do at the start of the game, so very, like, my first 2 blinks, if I know that there is a spawn location that is near me, just off of playing, or I can blink to an open area where I can see a lot, and it's out in the open, I can see down across the map, or where they may have spawned, I will burn my 2 blinks to get to that. But other than that, I wouldn't really go out of the rule, out of the exceptions I've already listed, I wouldn't really ever go out of the rule of 1 blink for travel, and then 2 blink for your hit when traveling the map. That is my advice for that. Okay, playing around the fatigue. In fatigue, if you're using Shadowborn, you should be concentrating on the top, quarter, eighth of your screen, so that you can see the feet of the survivors that you're chasing, and you should be able to see them pretty easily. I know there is a trick where you can move your camera quickly left to right, and you can see more of a view. It allows you to see more of the survivors, so if that works for you, you could do that as well. But actually, right now in the game, as I'm releasing this guide, and it has been for quite a while, you can simply just push up on the right stick if you're playing on a controller, or you can just move your mouse upwards, and you can actually look up in fatigue. This has been a bug which has been in the game for quite a while, and it doesn't look like it's getting patched anytime soon. I don't think the devs have brought any attention to it. I haven't seen any content creators drawing any attention to it. I actually told Dowsy about this, and he had no idea, so I think it's something that's not really well known, but you can literally just look up in fatigue at the moment, and you can just see the survivors, and you have a perfect line of view. But if there isn't this at the moment, then you are mainly going to be banking off of what you can see at the top of your screen, what you can see if you're using Shadowborn, or if you're shaking side to side, and you're trying to listen to the survivors. So footsteps, like a headset, is really important. Footsteps, you can listen to the certain direction, the groans of pain, if they're injured, grass, that kind of thing, just so that you have the head start when you come out of fatigue in what direction you need to be looking, and where you're going to be blinking to get that survivor down and let them make as little distance as possible. One more thing I wanted to go over was the fundamentals of what I'm talking about when I say blink in a general area, is you're always blinking to set up your second blink. So your first blink is always to set up your second blink. A lot of what you're trying to do with your first blink is to just get line of sight of the survivor. So I've made this thing quickly on paint, which is on the top drawing here. That's meant to be a wall or any line of sight blocker. In this example, it's meant to be a jungle gym wall, where I'm suggesting that with your nurse blink, you first blink to the corner. If you have enough distance to catch the survivor in the 2 blinks that you have, I recommend you blink to the corner, get the line of sight, and then blink towards the survivor with the second blink. If you don't have enough distance, then I recommend you do the green line, which is just blinking straight across, because you don't actually have the distance to cover, and then if they did double back, that's okay. You can set yourself, and then you can go for it again later. But this is one of the only times I would ever recommend doing a direct blink, is when you don't have enough distance to catch the survivor, with your first and second blink going for line of sight on the first. And one fundamental which is really important with nurse is to always blink to the point where you saw the survivor that you're chasing last, because they couldn't have gone too far from that distance. And if you know that you can blink there and then you have enough range in your second blink being max range when the scratches get down to the wrist on the left hand, then that's what you're always doing. Is if you quickly see them, then you blink to where you saw them last. Maybe it's been a second or two, then you can quickly catch them with the second blink, because they haven't made enough distance to get out of your second blink range. And that is one of the most important fundamentals for nurse in chasing, with good survivors, bad survivors, just in general nurse play. That's just something that you need to understand. If they're within distance, to catch them with your first and then second blink, you always blink to where you saw them last, and then you use your second blink to set and get your hit. Okay, general play against most survivors in public games. If you're struggling in public games, I really recommend you listen to this section, because this is, the 99% of survivors that you face in public games, this is the kind of thing they will do. Most survivors, or the average skill of survivors, they will still path jungle gyms to the pallet or the vault. And using this information, you know exactly how they would run it against a normal M1 killer, R2, RZ, right trigger killer, is you can use that pathing in the back of your head to go and cut them off. And it's really that simple. It's very, very easy. You can blink to a location where they would normally run the jungle gym, and 9 times out of 10, it's going to be accurate on these kind of survivors. Against average survivors, there won't be as much of a mind game for this kind of thing. They're normally running it that kind of way, and if they're not, I just want to give the advice that you're making sure that you're getting information on where the survivor is, even if you don't get the hit. So across a seawall, there should be a visual coming up. I would recommend that you blink directly across the seawall jungle gym with the pallet, so that no matter where the survivor is, you're going to see them as you're blinking through, whether you're on PS4 and you have the increased sensitivity, you can quickly flick the sticks either side, or whether you're on PC and you have the high DPI and you can quickly flick your mouse around to see where that survivor is, or you can hear them, whatever. You get information no matter what with your blink, so even if you don't get the hit, the blink isn't wasted. You still know roughly where they are, and then if they're within range, you can get them with the second blink, or you've landed on them, you've got the hit in the first place. No matter what, you never want to be wasting a blink. You always want to be getting something out of it. Against average survivors, there will be a lot more straight line running. They're not really going to fake the double back. They're not really going to double back much either. A lot of, average survivors don't really know the range of the second blink. So normally they think they're out of range, and you can get a pretty easy second hit if you know your blink ranges. A second blink hit, sorry. If you know your blink hit ranges. If a survivor does double back, a lot of survivors in public games as well work in patterns, so they will do it again. And then you just need to blink. This is where, again, I've went over this on stream. You need to blink to an area where if they double back, you're going to get the hit, and then if they don't double back, you can hit them with the second blink. You need to blink more general against every survivor so that you can hit with the second blink. You're not always trying to land on their back with one blink and then instantly get the swing. Obviously, that's more beneficial, and if you can do it and there's not much distance and there's a high chance you're going to hit it, then go for it. But if there's a lot of distance, that's not what you're trying to do for your second blink. You're trying to get into a general area to set, for your first blink, you're trying to get into a general area to set up your second blink so that it can land on the survivor's back. And that's what you want to do, is you want to use your first blink to set up your second blink. You're not trying to use the first blink to blink onto the survivor's back. If a survivor does double back too early towards you, you can just allow yourself to fatigue after your first blink, and then they won't make enough distance for, you to not get that easy hit after one blink, or not even blinking at all. And then if they were fully healed, it's pretty easy to get it down after that, because they have made such little distance, because you've got that hit so close to them. And yeah, that's why survivors that do double back like that so early, if you do just allow yourself to fatigue, it becomes a lot easier of a chase, because the survivor has messed up a lot. He's reduced their distance to the nurse, and all of a sudden they make those blinks a lot easier and getting those hits a lot easier. So this is what I was touching on before in the playing against less skilled survivors, but it has its own section because I think it's so important. It's a fundamental for nurse, which I think is, so crucial to just learning nurse at a high level, is your positioning. Is you always want to put yourself in a position that you're going to get the hit on the second blink with your first blink. You want to make sure that you're getting line of sight, and you want to push them away from line of sight blockers. So if there is an opportunity to zone them into a dead zone, that's absolutely what you want to go for, even if it means you're not going to get your hit. Push them back into the dead zone. That makes your blinks a whole lot easier. That all they can run is a tree or rocks or something like that. That's definitely what you want to do. You want to push them away from jungle gyms, areas where it's more guesswork than concrete. 100% they're going to be hit. That's what you want quite a lot of the time. If there are areas where it's easy to get a safe hit and an easy blink, because there's no line of sight or anything to prevent the nurse from just blinking on through, no prediction, 100% you're in that location, then that's where you want the survivors to be at all times. That's where you want to zone them to. That's how you want to set up your 3-gen if you're playing competitively, or if that's how you play in pubs. Or that's where you want, that's where you want the action of the chase to be happening, is in a dead zone. So if you can push them into that dead zone, that's incredibly beneficial for you, and I definitely recommend doing it. I decided to make an entire section for Shaq, because I feel like a lot of people struggle with it when you get some of the fundamentals down. Or what I realized very, very quickly with Shaq is that when a survivor tries to play Shaq on me, it's one of the best areas for me to chase at in the game, because I always just take the inside of Shaq if I can. If there is viability for the survivor to run around Shaq or whatever, and they're running towards the pallet side or whatever, I will always just go into Shaq, and then you can listen, you can look through the holes in the walls that there are on most maps, you can look through the little cracks in the back of Shaq, and then it's really easy to get your hit. You're making 100% they're in this location, because I can hear the footsteps, I can hear the grass, or I can see them through the little crack in Shaq. and you're just going into the middle, you're listening to where they are, you'll have a rough general idea because of how they run it, and that's where you're using your 1 blink or 2 blinks if you need it. You can quickly blink out, get some line of sight, and then blink onto their back. Or if you do see them, then you can get an easy 1 blink hit, which is, that's why I really like playing Shack. I don't know if a lot of Nurse's mains will agree with me on this, but I really, really do enjoy pushing survivors towards Shack because I think it's such an easy hit for me. Even if there is something on the edge of the map for them to work with, for example a Z-wall, if they're on that Z-wall, I can blink out to it, I can fatigue, and then I can use my next 2 blinks, which to 100% guarantee myself a hit on that Z-wall. Okay, this is the section which I imagine most Nurse mains or people that know a lot about the game will just instantly, open up the video and skip to it straight away. Because I think this is what I would give myself the most credit for, like something that I've done quite a lot of times in my tournament play. I have won 11 tournaments playing Nurse, and it's just something that it's very difficult to do, and not a lot of Nurse mains even can do it very consistently. It's just something that you will get off of experience or playing against a good 4-stack many times over and over again. But even if you are a good survivor, that doesn't mean that that survivor can play against Nurse. Nurse is a completely different killer and completely ignores all of the rules of Dead by Daylight. That's why she's so interesting. That's why she has this skill curve which goes on forever. You can always get better with Nurse. You can always get better. But smarter survivors, in general, they'll do a lot more. They won't stick to one consistent juke. And due to this, you need to play a lot safer against the smarter survivors, forcing them into areas where you have line of sight for the safe blinks and the easy hits. You have to try to take first chase in a dead zone or near one that you can force the survivor into. This will create opportunities for a first, relatively easy down. If you're playing comp, you need a quick down at the start of the game to really build that pressure. You should not be going for predictions without any visual or audio indicators against better survivors, as due to them being unobvious, these blinks are very unlikely to land. The better survivors are going to make it, they're going to path incredibly weird, they're going to make their movement incredibly weird, they're going to double back sometimes, they'll really be inconsistent in what they're doing. You're not going to see the patterns that you see on the worst survivors on the better survivors. It's just simply not going to happen. As a Nurse, the best places to give chase are the less intricate tiles, where there are less opportunities for line of sight blocking or jukes due to movement. I would much rather play on a corner vault jungle gym than dead dog jungle gyms, which are much more intricate, have a lot of stuff inside them, have the fire barrels, have the walls really tight to each other. Just because of the hitboxes on this game, they're inconsistent, they're not always what they look like, and it's a lot easier to blink on a much more open jungle gym or a much more open tile than it is a much more intricate one. Like the houses on Haddonfield, you don't really want to chase inside either, because they're very intricate on the inside, same with houses on Badham. Just because of the inconsistent hitboxes, that could be an opportunity for you think that you're blinking through and the game says, okay, no, there's a hitbox here, even if it doesn't look like it is, and it just blocks your blink. So you really want to chase in areas where, it gives them less opportunity to outplay you, it gives less opportunity for there to be some sort of blink block from the, surrounding area, and it gives them less opportunity to run you, less opportunity to deceive what they're doing, less opportunity to make it a prediction game rather than 100% they're in this location. Is you always want to chase in the better areas. And one thing that I would definitely recommend is if you are having a bad chase, you're missing a lot of blinks, drop the chase. That survivor, you just need to reset. It might not be that survivor's god, just get out of the chase, come back. If you get a better opportunity, you see somebody sat on a gen, go for that survivor instead. And because it's really a mental game, and if that survivor gets in your head, then they could waste your time for 15 minutes, If that survivor doesn't get in your head, and this could just be a reset of a chase, I could have a 5-minute chase against the survivor, I could then reset the chase and take another one in a different area, and I could 2-tap that survivor in 10 seconds. It's completely on what I think they're going to do and what they think I'm going to do. And if they start predicting what I'm going to do right, then I'm going to panic, and then they're going to predict what I'm doing right more, and they're going to get inside of your head. So it's really a mental thing with Nurse. So I would 100% recommend, if you are getting juked quite a lot, to drop the chase. And that's definitely what I would recommend for playing against better survivors, is to try and chase them in the best areas for you, and to try and 3-gen and base your 3-gen in comp in the best areas for you. That's just something you have to drill in is the less intricate tiles, the more open areas, because no survivor can do anything about that. If you're in an open area, all they can do is have weird movement. And if you can learn their weird movement, learn their patterns, then all of a sudden it's going to be just as simple as downing, any other survivor. If you realize what they're doing very quickly, then you can get a quick 2-tap, you can get a hook in a dead zone, and then all of a sudden you can monitor the 3 gens close to that hook, and you have so much pressure, it's insane. And the last section in the nurse guide, or the brief, partial, quick advice on each section, nurse guide, is the perks and perk builds. A lot when people say, what perk build should I run in pubs, I have one in my mind. There are a lot of different perk builds, and it definitely goes down to your preference as a killer, what you enjoy, what you like. Personally, I don't really like whispers, because I don't like the noises it makes in my ears, and that's just a personal thing, it just irritates me. But for public games, I would recommend barbecue, sloppy, pop, and infectious. Infectious and barbecue are just for tracking, so you can find survivors quicker. And then you're only going to slow down the game through your own skill. If you get no hits and no downs, there is no game slowdown at all. It completely depends on you getting downs to regress the gens, and it completely depends on you getting hits to keep your pressure and make them heal and slow down the game more. That's why I like recommending that build to people, is because that build is going to make you get better as killer, but it's also still a pretty good build for pub, so you're not going to just get mowed if you're not a good nurse over and over. However, if you are already a good nurse and you're trying to get better, I would recommend something more like, barbecue, agitation, whispers, all of those perks that don't slow the game down, but they speed up your menial tasks a lot more. So I wouldn't recommend an I'm all ears for a good nurse, because if you're trying to get better, then you don't want to just know, okay, the survivor's over here, I can just blink on them. It's about your mind games, your prediction that you're trying to get better at, which will then give you the shorter chases. I would recommend speeding up everything else. So barbecue, you find survivors off the hook. Infectious, you find survivors when you get down, so that speeds up your tracking aspect of the game. Agitation, it speeds you getting hooks up quicker so that you can speed that up. Just things like that. It's just tracking and stuff that you want to refine, and that's what you want to have if you are already a good nurse and you're trying to get better, and you're trying to make your chases better, and you're trying to put yourself in a position where if the survivors are good, then you're relying completely on your skill and your ability to get fast downs rather than slow down perks. That is a build I recommend, or using those kind of perks. And then for competitive matches, if you are asking me for strictly the best nurse build, at the moment I would say something along the lines of Corrupt, Ruin, Haunted Grounds, and Undying, or Corrupt, Ruin, Undying, and Surveillance. Depending on the map layout, if it's a smaller map, I would be inclined to go with Surveillance. If I know I'm going to have to go with a 3-gen strategy, I would more likely go with Surveillance. If I know it's a game I have to win quick, I would switch it up. I would, probably bring Infectious and stuff like that. So it completely depends on the setup of the game. But I think in the game right now, the best nurse build would be Corrupt, Ruin, Undying, and Haunted, or Corrupt, Ruin, Undying, and Surveillance. And it completely depends on the map. So those are the builds, again, that I would recommend for nurse for different styles of play, depending on what you want to do, that kind of thing. Well, one more thing with the perks is Shadowborn. I recommend using Shadowborn to learn when you're learning nurse, because it makes it, slightly easier. You can see in fatigue and stuff like that. But I recommend after you start winning most of your games to try and take Shadowborn off, just because having that extra perk slot, is huge in the games that are actually close and the survivors that are good. That extra perk slot can do a lot for you. That can be, a pop on a gen. That can be Thanatophobia, slowing down the gens. That could be Sloppy Butcher, slowing down the heals and keeping people injured. That extra perk slot is so huge, and that's definitely something you want to keep open if you can afford to take a Shadowborn off. In terms of map tier list or map offering tier list, this is the orientation that I would go for as of right now. This is based off of before the Macmillans are reworked, but Autohaven was definitely one of the best nurse maps, because you can look through the holes in the jungle gyms, which I recommend for you to do on any map which has holes in the jungle gyms. Just look through, get some information, see if they've passed straight, left, right, what you can look through. Even if they haven't passed a hole, it just means that they haven't gone in that direction, and it can just narrow down where they've gone a little bit more. Autohaven, the walls of the jungle gyms, there are a lot of holes. You can see a lot of the survivor, and you can just look at what they're doing without them necessarily knowing that you know what they're doing, which is really good for you. If they don't know that you can see it, then they're not going to change what they're doing necessarily, and then that gives you a relatively easy blink to land. So Autohaven, absolutely at my top tier. The game I absolutely love as well. You have so much pressure because she doesn't give a shit about stairs, she doesn't give a shit about walls, she can just go up and down just like that. It's very easy, it's very simple. She can hold down a very good 3-gen lock across multiple floors. The survivors have to go up the stairs, you don't. You can just go up and down depending on what you can hear. You can just go around the bottom floor and you can hear the survivor's footsteps above you and blink up. That's why it's such a good map for the nurse. It can be more difficult if the survivors are running multiple iron walls, but even then, you can hear the footsteps. It's a very, very good map for nurse in my opinion, especially with the upstairs being a lot more open. I really, really do like the game as well. Macmillan, again, one of the more open maps, has maps like Cold Tower where it's very easy to 3-gen on either side. You can also have a lot of open line of sight. The jungle gyms are very big, very easy to play around. You could sort of just blink in, just get some information, whether they've double backed, which way they've gone out, and then you can try and land your second blink. The Crotus Pren Asylum, or the Crotus Pren maps, I definitely do like for nurse as well. The most difficult things on this map are the rubble, but they're a lot more open. You know, there's a lot of line of sight. The jungle gyms are similar to Macmillan, so they're very big, they're very open. You can just blink in and just get some information. You can try and listen to the survivor once you've blinked into the jungle gym. Again, I think it's a very good map for nurse. I think it's a very good map offering to put on if you are trying to do well with nurse. The swamp, less so much. With the ups and the downs in the map, it can really mess up your blinks a little bit and give you less distance. So that does happen, that's why it's a little bit lower. The cold wind as well. Personally, I quite like the corn maps, but I know a lot of people struggle with the corn, that's why I've put it so low. A lot of people struggle seeing the survivors in the corn, but my recommendation for that is to look, if the survivor has a bright cosmetic, focus on the bright cosmetics because you can see it for quite a distance. And so it doesn't have a bright cosmetic, look at the tops of the corn and you can see them shaking, and that's what you want to focus on. Then you can determine whether the survivor is off that. Because so many people have problems dealing with the corn, I've put it a little bit lower, and it is difficult at the end of the day. If the survivor's decent, then they're going to path weird in the corn, you don't have 100% line of sight, and it's just going to make it a very hard. There's a lot less dead zones in the cold wind maps as well, or no line of sight zones I should say, where you could just get an easy blink. Dead Dog I have never liked for nurse, mainly because of the intricate jungle gyms on the bottom side of the map, and the buildings, when you actually blink through them, your view goes completely black as of when I'm recording this, and so you can't actually see the survivor as you're coming out of the building. It's just a complete prediction. Once you've landed, that's when you can see and you have line of sight. So I would never ever recommend chasing an entire side of the map for Dead Dog, and if there's any map like that, it can't be high in the tier list because there's essentially an entire map which is a dead zone as well. I think the up and downs on the gallows and the main building are bugged and they're inconsistent. Sometimes it's just not going to send you up there. I don't know whether that's because of bugged hitboxes or what it is, but I've spoke to other nursemates and stuff like that, and they have agreed, you know, it's very inconsistent on the ups and downs in this map, so that's why I've put it so low. Hawkins, again, pretty obvious, indoor map. There's a lot of stuff everywhere, there's a lot of line of sight blockers, there's a lot of walls, so it's a pretty difficult map for the nurse. It also runs bad frames on the consoles. Haddonfield, very intricate little buildings if they do decide to run them, and in general Haddonfield's just not a very good map for any killer, especially with the gens so far apart. Springwood, again, very intricate buildings, harder to land a precise blink, harder to avoid your blink getting messed up, and you're not actually traveling anywhere in those buildings, so if the survivor knows to run those buildings, it's going to be a very difficult map for you. It's not at the bottom because there are open areas, but as well as that, you know, it runs bad frames on console, so you've got to take that into account. Ormond, not overall a bad map. I think Nurse is one of the best killers on that map, but there are a lot of line of sight blockers. The main building is pretty hard to chase in, especially if they go upstairs, because you have to be pretty precise with your blinks. And on top of that, it's just huge. You can't pressure more than 3 gens really. You're never really going to get more than 3 gens that are close enough for you to pressure on that map. It's just in general a bad killer map, and of course that still applies to Nurse. Larry's, again, at my bottom tier. It's, you know, indoor map, a lot of line of sight blockers. I don't think I really need to go over that one. I think it's pretty obvious. Red Forest, again, huge map. Laggy frames for the consoles. There's a lot of trees, a lot of things to work around. It's pretty hard to chase in the main building because of how intricate it is, as well as the smoke shack. And Yamaoka, again, a lot of line of sight blockers. It's very big. The totems even used to be bugged, and the totems are very hard to play around on Sanctum of Wrath. And then Midwich is probably the worst map in the game for Nurse right now, which in theory it should be good because she can, you know, go up and down just like that. She doesn't have to give a shit about the stairs. But the problem is there are literal areas on Midwich where you cannot blink no matter what. There is nothing there. You should be able to blink there, but how it is at the moment right now as I'm recording this is you literally cannot blink where there are the two lockers next to each other. And there is also a little bit of a thing where there's the little pink pile of meat or whatever it is next to the basement, and if you blink into that at all, rather than just blocking your blink, you'll just get chucked into the basement. So this map is too bugged for it to be anything higher than the bottom tier right now. This may change in the future if they do rework it, but as of right now, this is my tier list for all the maps. And that is pretty much my brief nerfs guide, going over all the individual things that people have asked me to go over on Twitter. Having 4,500 hours on console and about 1,000 hours on PC now, I think it's something that, you know, I've been asked a lot to do, and it's something that I finally got the time to push out after finally, you know, I've had videos corrupted, audio corrupted multiple times. We finally got the video done. So if you did enjoy the video, you want to see more educational nurse content or anything like that, please scroll down and click the subscribe button and drop a like. Anything like that, it will help me a lot more than you realize. And I really do appreciate you watching. Thank you so much for swinging by the channel. I hope you've learned something from the video, and if you have any questions, always drop it in the comments and I'll try and get back to you. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a good rest of your days.